Maki Zenin vs Hakari Kinji, two monstrous fighters and among the best and most powerful students within the Jujutsu society. Today, my brothers and sisters, I, Enemy Stand User, will be debunking all of their powers and abilities to see just who would win in a fight to the death, the Zenin Revenger or the Gembla Hakari. We will fully exhaust and scale every relevant aspect of their character, including their speed, their battle prowess, their weapons, skill, cursed techniques, cursed energy, all of it. Today I will be using information up to chapter 222, so keep that in mind and remember to like and comment below how you feel about the matchup and how you think they scale. Now that we are entering the end game of Jujutsu Kaisen, these two should become pretty relevant power-wise and they should definitely get their due respect. So let's discuss where they start and compare some of their stats. Today we will be considering Maki after her Sakurajima epiphany, and she possesses the Soul Split Katana curse tool, hitting her up against Hakari in every scenario or state that he's in, including his base, his jackpot mode, and situations involving his domain expansion flow. So let's first consider how Maki Zenin scales to go up against such a powerhouse. Maki is a monster. Ever since Mai's sacrifice and her being freed from the chains of cursed energy, she has blossomed into a vicious, demonic fighter. Just like Toji, she has a heavenly restriction of being physically gifted. In fact, it's stated that she is on par with Toji as a fighter, and certainly that speaks volumes about her physical strength and prowess. They seem to be different in terms of how calculated they are, but in terms of power and ability, they are 1-to-1. And this physical power is pretty freaking ridiculous. Toji has been shown running on water like nothing, bolting at insane speeds, and slipping through the air like it's natural. For Toji, in terms of brute force, some of the most impressive things we've seen are flailing the inverted sphere of heaven on the chain of 1,000 miles, creating a whiplash of rubble, and in his Dagon battle, Toji was able to brutally overpower the curse and beat him so bad the special grade curse tool Playful Cloud actually broke and was ripped apart. Playful Cloud is the only special grade curse tool not imbued with the curse technique, but relies solely on the user's pure and solid power, and he broke it. Maki also has very impressive physical strength feats as well. A recent one in chapter 215 showed Maki casually kicking Sukuna through a tree and then through a building wall. Even considering it really did nothing, her strength is nothing to scoff at, and this is all without any ability to wield cursed energy. Hand to hand, it should go without saying that they are perhaps the best hand-to-hand fighters in the series. Gege points this out in his Fall Jump Giga interview. Not considering cursed energy or cursed tools, they are in a different league than even Gojo and Kenjaku. We mostly see Maki's taijutsu throughout the series. Before her awakening, she had a lot of grappling and disarming techniques, and since her awakening, she has been shown to absolutely decimate hand-to-hand, like against the Kukuru unit and some members of the Hei in her carnage. And of course, her most controversial feat was Maki's ability to keep up with and exchange blows with 15-finger Maguna. Now, no matter what you think, it's very impressive on its own. Many fans reference Sukuna saying his cursed energy output fluctuating around 10% was in reference to his overall cursed energy and his capability. After all, cursed energy output is essential to a sorcerer's effectiveness in battle. But what Sukuna is saying here is only in context to his cursed technique. Later we saw Sukuna mention, "This body resists me," and drops cursed energy output when I'm hurting its allies. A more precise translation is, "Probably when I try to hurt his comrades, this body strongly resists me and drops my cursed technique's cursed energy output." From this statement, Sukuna is referring to when he attacks, it specifically affects his cursed technique. We saw this earlier at the start of the chapter, indicating that the cursed energy output drop is only in regards to his cursed technique, not necessarily his cursed energy reinforcement or his general usage of cursed energy. The translations don't use this in context with a cursed technique, and we already saw how his physical body or his movement was not affected by it. So if you really want to highball Maki, you technically would not be wrong in assuming that she is physically keeping up with a 15 finger Sukuna with a nerfed technique. Maki also has enhanced durability as a physically gifted fighter. We saw how Toji was able to withstand Gojo's reversal red without any lasting damage or broken bones, and Maki was able to defeat the entire Zenin family despite suffering from grave injury and tanking different attacks. And she did all of this with very moderate difficulty. Heavenly Restriction gives Maki and Toji a natural resistance to curses, and they even have a kind of slow healing factor where Maki could heal internal damage within the span of 5 minutes. And this was from taking on the full brunt of Naoya's Mach 3 hit. Regardless, Maki is extremely tough, and even Sukuna acknowledges her resilience when he found out she survived his Nue lightning attack. She may not have reinforcement or any cursed energy defense, but she is tough. However, Maki's speed and reflexes are a very unique case. Even Toji's speed was directly compared to 3-finger Sukuna and hinted at being even faster. This is just Megumi's assumption after being blitzed by both Sukuna and Toji, but it does actually make sense considering Maki's speed against 15-finger Maguna. Before her epiphany, Maki was actually quite fast. Like even before her awakening, she caught her sister's bullet and she was able to adjust to the speed of projection sorcery after gaining her new body. In Naoya's human form, she had some brief trouble with keeping up with him, and at that point, human Naoya was at subsonic speed, but using her gifted body, she was able to overcome his projection sorcery and use his speed against him. In Sakurajima, the new cursed Naoya already surpassed the speed of sound, and at his peak, this cursed Naoya was able to reach Mach 3. After Maki's epiphany, she makes Mach 3 look like a joke, and it was no longer a fight when she reached Toji's level and freed her clouded mind, allowing Maki to easily react and outmaneuver Naoya's Mach 3 propulsion. This actually goes a level above that. Maki says, "Everything around me will tell me how Naoya will move." Maki is able to see the invisible scattered surfaces of the atmosphere and sees them, like she's grabbing the air, allowing Maki to freely slip through the air however she pleases. This hyper-awareness is akin to a type of precognition because Maki is actually reading how the opponent will move and her body allows her to react to it. This makes Maki especially dangerous as she possesses the cursed blade called the Soul Split Katana. This weapon can bypass the physical toughness of most substances to cut the soul directly. This power to cut the soul can only be exerted by a user who has the ability to observe the souls of even inorganic matter, to which Maki has mastered this art. This is Hakari's biggest contention, as it is not confirmed if slashes from this blade can be healed using reverse curse technique on human flesh. Soul damage is not really something very explored in this series, and it seems like it may not be so simple as to just heal with reverse curse technique. Obviously, Maki isn't a sorcerer, but even she questions if wounds from the blade can be healed with reverse curse technique. We did technically see cursed Naoya suffer a couple of wounds from Dido using the blade, who actually should be able to perceive the souls as the blade's prerequisite. But cursed Naoya was able to heal from the injury with a cursed spirit's negative cursed energy. However, in his last moments, Naoya was cut in half and died from the soul blade. And while I will get into specifics in the Hakari section and the fight breakdown later, this is a different matter from idol transfiguration because that technique transfigures or reshapes the soul. It has been confirmed to be beyond the limits of reverse curse technique as of chapter 112. But the complete severance and splitting of the soul, it can't really be proven or disproven to be able to be healed by reverse curse technique. Maki also has the special ability to be void of a domain expansion's guaranteed hit because Maki has no cursed energy for the domain barrier to register. As we saw from chapter 198, domains treat Maki and Toji as inanimate objects like buildings. So Maki cannot be trapped inside a barrier unless she consents to the domain's conditions, or the domain includes physical structures like Megumi's incomplete domain or Sukuna's malevolent shrine. Standard domains with enclosed barriers create a separate space made from cursed energy, so it would exclude the physical environment. This is why Maki disappeared from Naoya's domain because the barrier did not include her, and she appeared to have materialized after she stabbed Naya with the cursed tool. So it's as if Maki didn't exist in that barrier until the cursed energy of that blade revealed her, and still the sure hit could not recognize Maki. It's a bit similar to how Toji is no longer visible to the curtain barrier surrounding Jujutsu tech when he holds the foreign cursed energy of his cursed weapons or his inventory curse, but in Maki's case, this is inside a real domain expansion barrier. Maki is an outstanding case of a sorcerer killer. Every tool Gege has given her with her speed, her reflexes, physical strength, immunity, and cursed tools, it's like a direct counter to a sorcerer. But can she take out an immortal sorcerer like Hakari, apparently the secret weapon of Jujutsu High, and the student boasted even stronger than Yuta Akotsu, stated by Yuta himself? Maki says that ain't true, but today she's finna find out as we discuss the next fighter, Hakari Kinji.
Yosh! 全員いるな。まとめてかかってこい。
The gambler, the myth, the legend. Hakari is one of the strongest sorcerers of this modern era, and throughout the series he has been surrounded by immense hype as the secret weapon of Jujutsu High that is even stronger than Yuta when on a roll. Hakari is an exceptional hand-to-hand fighter who has first debuted bullying Yuji with his serrated like rough cursed energy property. In his base, Hakari showed very competent combat prowess against Charles Bernard, as even when an opponent could see into the future, his speed seriously pressured Charles and blatantly would have beaten him outright if not for his clairvoyance. Hakari also enters his killable base form when he deploys his domain expansion, and he was even able to survive against Kashimo in his killable state with the help of his domain called Idle Death Gamble. For the short version, this is a gacha game slash pachinko themed domain that is based off of a made up manga called Private Pure Love Train. As you can guess, this is a luck-based domain that is completely harmless to both the user and the opponent, but as a trade-off, its domain counterpull is extremely strong with a sure hit activation time of less than 0.2 seconds, so it gives the opponent no time to react, and near instantly they become trapped inside this barrier. The sure hit itself merely informs the target of the rules, and technically this considers that Hakari has a modern type enclosed domain expansion with a harmless guaranteed hit. This domain allows Hakari to enter different modes like increased probability or faster spins in order to reach a jackpot, as the game ebbs away and creates different scenarios representing Hakari's chance for 3 slot icons to line up and reward him with a jackpot. A jackpot gives Hakari infinite cursed energy, and thus his body gives him automatic reverse curse technique that prevents his body from breaking. This state begins immediately after jackpot and lasts 4 minutes and 11 seconds until it is over and reverts him back to being killable. This is Hakari's biggest strength and biggest weakness. After all, it is a gamble. Hakari's automatic reverse curse technique means that he is effectively immortal, as his body will heal from grave injury quickly and keep regenerating. It's actually very curse-like how fast and how much Hakari can heal. His reverse curse technique can even heal from poison, confirming that it is an advanced form of reverse curse of a higher level. It was even able to regenerate his brain while it was being destroyed by the lightning. During jackpot, Hakari was able to fully contend and go toe to toe with Kashimo. The infinite cursed energy made him much faster. It gave him an insane amount of physical strength, and he was able to ignore Kashimo's innate cursed energy property of electricity. In this state, blow for blow, you could argue Hakari hits harder and could even be faster than Yuta based on him being on that roll. In all honesty, I think Yuta's statement is highly contextual, but Hakari is a physical monster. And with his cursed energy, his reinforcement and enhanced attacks, he is at least somewhat relative to Yuta. Hakari was casually throwing around storage containers and destroying the ground with the force of his blows, so his attack power is off the rails. In terms of speed, that is where this gets quite a bit inconsistent, because in chapter 186, Jackpot Hakari was shown reacting to Kashimo's return stroke of lightning. We see the panels kind of show Hakari looks like he's contorting his body so the lightning doesn't hit his face. Now, a lot of fans really highball this feat and swear that Hakari's reaction speed is relative to fucking lightning. That's 100,000 kilometers per second. 1/3 the speed of light. That is bullshit. No fighting about it, no argument. That feat makes no freaking sense. Of course, the lightning itself can move that fast as an attack. It's the return stroke of electricity. But then people reason that Kashimo is also relative to his own lightning just because he's reacting to Hakari, and that's just BS. It's inconsistent. Their reaction speed and attack speed are completely different things, and even then, they should not be getting hit with each other's attacks if they were lightning fast. It's just not good to take their speed as an end-all one-for-one sort of thing as it is, because Hakari did not react to that lightning again after that. And if you take his feat at face value, you might just assume anyone who isn't dodging lightning is slower than Hakari and Kashimo, which is just not true. That being said, Hakari and Kashimo are extremely fast and display a lot of battle prowess physically, so you can use your discretion in how their speed scales among the top tiers. For the sake of this video, Hakari should be able to react to Maki, but that doesn't mean he's not getting hit by her. JJK has a lot of inconsistent speed scaling, so I highly suggest using discretion when scaling his speed, instead of just assuming because Hakari seemed to react to the lightning in a very convoluted panel with zero context, his feat would trump Maki's speed, which we are given a definite number of Mach 3, and also given context telling us that Maki can read her opponent's moves. Maki's feat just seems a lot more grounded in my opinion. Because I'll say right now, if Hakari is truly moving lightning fast, then this isn't really a fight. Hakari would win because he'd never get hit with such a feat. But that's not how this goes, because the speed is way too inconsistent, and it really doesn't make all too much sense in the manner in which Hakari was hit and how fast he moved. So I'm not going to be considering this feat, but I will acknowledge Hakari probably can react to Maki. So if a battle between Maki Zenin and Hakari Kinji broke out, who would win? If we take this theoretical battle and break it down, it comes down to a couple of things. Can Hakari's reverse curse technique heal from the soul split katana? How will Hakari's domain work on Maki, and can Maki last against a jackpot Hakari? So for the first point, one of Hakari's biggest challenges is getting around Maki's soul blade. It should go without saying, base Hakari would not fare well at all against Maki with her weapon. Hakari's base would get decimated, especially since he wouldn't have reverse curse technique, cursed energy bonus, or increased stats. And Maki is the pinnacle of physical strength and has a blade that can cut him apart with very low effort. So that is a very clear dub for Maki in that situation, considering Hakari's base and nothing else. Something more contentious is if Hakari's jackpot auto reverse curse technique is able to heal soul damage. As far as we have seen, Hakari has this high level of reverse curse technique, and we've seen that it will automatically repair Hakari even while he's getting destroyed. But soul damage is something unexplored. We mentioned earlier soul transfiguration mutates the soul, and that is something that is beyond reverse curse technique's capability, but repairing the soul from getting split apart, it seems impossible. From what we know, a sorcerer can protect their soul using cursed energy, but putting it back together has never once been stated, expressed, or implied by anyone. In fact, Maki literally questions if reverse curse technique can heal it, which kind of implies that maybe it's not something that can be healed. She wasn't even trying to test that out with Megumi's body. But the thing is, you could also say that Maki is implying that since Sukuna cannot die, then that means he can heal from the soul cuts with reverse curse technique. The TCB translations kind of hints at this, but the more accurate translation by Lightning446 on Twitter points out Maki is still questioning if reverse curse technique can heal from the sword. Again, it's not transfiguration or anything like that, and cursed energy has been proven to affect the soul, so you can conclude that positive cursed energy may heal human flesh along with the soul, especially considering an immortal sorcerer like Hakari with a body that just will not let him die. There's a chance he could actually heal from Maki's cuts. We do not know the limits of Hakari's reverse curse technique. Of course, you would expect someone like Sukuna to just survive anything, especially techniques involving the soul. It's really relevant, especially now more than ever, but it's difficult to say if Hakari can heal the soul, even if Sukuna could. We just do not know the knowledge or skill that requires, so I'll consider both outcomes in this video. If Hakari cannot heal with reverse curse, this becomes a much simpler matter. Even stray hits connected from the sword will be irreversible and Hakari will get cut down very quickly, especially considering he literally cuts loose when he's immortal, and he might be wary of the sword, but undoubtedly if they exchanged hits close quarters, Hakari would die against the sword. It will bypass his reinforcement and cut his soul directly. It's even more apparent if she cuts him in the head like she did her father Ogi. If Hakari does heal from soul damage, then Maki would have to be a lot more cautious toward her strikes because Hakari would heal very quickly and continue to keep up the pressure. I think that gives Hakari a lot more of an edge and he could potentially win if he played his cards right, but there is still a huge problem in that Maki has a sword that can cut his brain and Hakari has to beat her to death unarmed. Maki is not someone to face up close with no game plan besides punching and kicking her. That is literally her bread and butter to be within that striking distance. The sword will still cut him and she still has the opportunity to cut his brain in half to stop him despite his reverse curse technique. With the next point, it's probably the most confusing aspect of this fight is how Hakari's domain expansion flow will work against Maki. Hakari's domain is non-lethal with a guaranteed hit of a harmless information dump transferred to opponents' brains. This makes it extremely strong in a domain counterpull because of the faster than 0.2 second activation time. But what about Maki inside the domain? Well, considering Maki would not be targeted with a short hit info dump and wouldn't be trapped inside the domain in the first place, what exactly is the domain doing at that point? Essentially, Hakari using his domain on Maki is equivalent to using the domain against a building. What is the point? To seriously ask you guys the question, what is the point of idle death gamble if there's no one to gamble with? Realistically, there has to be a reason Hakari included a sure hit inside his domain expansion, because otherwise there's not even a point in trapping people in the domain if he can just roll jackpots on his own with absolutely no risk at all. It kind of goes against his ideals as a gambler. There's always risk involved. There is nothing that says his domain won't work as usual though. He may be able to get his jackpot that way and just leave Maki clueless as the info dump hadn't hit her and she's just left in the dark. But there's also just that tiny bit of chance that the domain expansion will be less effective or just not work without two fighters present and Maki is just not registered. Even with a domain under normal circumstances, Hakari is totally killable and could just as easily die to Maki's blade. In fact, if Maki discarded her sword, she would be totally invisible, and she actually has been known to kill and assassinate sorcerers unarmed by gouging out their throats and snapping their necks. Maki has been shown doing these things, so it's not completely out of the question against especially a base Hakari. Perhaps Hakari can reroll damage on himself with increased probability or using his consecutive effects, but that's a very iffy assumption for him, especially in his base form when dealt a killing blow. The best outcome for Hakari would be his hidden probability mode, which gave him an instant jackpot in chapter 189, but that's assuming his domain expansion works properly in the first place, considering he's basically using his domain on nothing. It wouldn't really make sense for Hakari to have the same outcome for an opponent that doesn't even exist in his domain. I find myself questioning what's there to gamble if Hakari is essentially the only one there. I mean, the technique itself is passive and it could keep rolling regardless, but that seems awfully weird for him to launch a solo domain and reap all the rewards without having an opponent to challenge. It honestly makes more sense to have a vow that requires another occupant, but that's something that is completely headcanon and not confirmed. But ultimately, can Maki withstand Jackpot Hakari? Well, considering what we have seen, Hakari is extremely tough in Jackpot mode. His reinforcement, his output, durability, speed, and power are exceptional, and he blatantly just outscales her in terms of his attack power. But he is not running circles around Maki's. That's just unrealistic. His hits would definitely give her a very hard time, but it's probably not one-shotting her, and certainly not killing her. Hakari would have to actually Maki beat her down to death, and that is a very tough hill to climb for an opponent that has the real ability to one-shot you in close combat. Maki can react to him and is hinted at having reflexes so sharp that the environment will tell her how he moves. Hakari isn't knocking the blade out of her hand. She has the strongest grip in the series, and Hakari really can't trade blows with her because even a half-ass swing from the blade can seriously injure Hakari. For me personally, it makes more sense narratively for Maki and Toji to be physically stronger and faster than characters like Hakari and Kashimo, even when they possess no cursed energy themselves. So they wouldn't be as durable, but they do have enhanced senses and reflexes that are absurdly hacked, and their senses are distinctively different from others. Even in normal combat, you can't necessarily read their movements, and this gives them a very unique advantage in the opponent trying to perceive them. Even Team Gojo, albeit he was very tired, he found it very difficult to sense Toji, and Gojo possesses the freaking 6 eyes. It's referenced a ton how hard Maki and Toji are to sense, so that would likely give Hakari a difficult time as well. The best win condition I could give Hakari is if he can heal from the Soul Split Katana and beat Maki to death before the round is over, and somehow he may be able to outlast her in close quarters combat if all the damage he suffers is below the neck and he lands decisive and consecutive hits on Maki. Otherwise, I'm very sorry to say that it's not even close. Maki at this moment is too much of a counter for a sorcerer like Hakari. He closes in the distance, which is exactly what Maki wants. Her sword cuts can easily flay at Hakari and potentially one-shot his head in a single blow, and it's especially bad if reverse curse doesn't work. She's fast enough to react to him, and she cannot be trapped within his domain barrier. See, you can come into this thinking it's going to be a real fight, but Maki isn't going to be going blow for blow with Hakari. She won't. He may try to dodge and avoid her sword, but there will come a point very quickly where she cuts him and it goes downhill from there. If Hakari can heal from the blade, that does make the battle much closer, but Hakari's serious lack of versatility doesn't help the fact that Maki has a sword that ignores all of his defense and literally can split him in half like nothing. There was a lot to consider in this hypothetical battle, but this was just a fun what if matchup I wanted to discuss with you guys. Maki, Yuta, and Hakari are the society's elite heavy hitters, and there will likely always be some contention or debate about who is stronger or who wins what, but who really knows the ceiling of this new generation? However, at least for this video, Hakari very well may be stronger than Yuta when on a roll as the society's secret weapon, but another demonic fighter who has left it all behind has awakened, and I have to say that Maki Zenin is the winner of this battle.